towards Doinby with that Galio takeaway, and also some of that AP jungle situation that we were talking about as well with Aki. That's going to be Zyra off the table, as well as Shanji's Udyr, who we whipped it out earlier this season as well.
I wonder if RNG are just calling for a Rumble blind, right? Just they got rid of the Galio. That seems like the most popular matchup. So NIP, kind of some options, especially earlier on into a fearless system. The strong blinds for solo lanes are really, really important. So I'll be looking as to what NIP are looking for. Shanji is a good Gnar player, so that is something that they can be looking forward to.
It's going to be an Aurora in response. That can be flexed around a little bit, although I think Doinby has played it earlier on in this season.
Yes.
See what the follow-up is here. And Bessa would make a lot of sense. It is, you know, something that the Rumble can burst down pretty quickly, especially towards the mid-game once he gets a couple of items. But the response will be an early Nocturne here for milkyway, as well as Tangyuan on the Corki. So a very standard composition early on opening up here for RNG.
It seems like they're comfortable as well with eventually having that Orianna taken away from them, as we see with that Nocturne pair. Corki allows for them to have strong skirmishing coming in from the bottom lane, and so this RNG team is going to have a big wake up on level 6, and especially their first item. So here for NIP, I think that their draft is just so strange when you look at their prior series, especially when they have been so reliant on 1-2 on red side, looking for jungle, pairing that up with a blindable solo laner, especially kind of, I think, leveraging the flexibility of someone like Doinby. This time, however, the Aurora and the Ambessa kind of feels a little bit strange. We'll see what they'll be able to grab, and maybe they're going for some kind of support counter pick here, but it feels like NIP with their 2 solo lane picks kind of put themselves in a weird spot in my opinion.
Yeah, I do like the Jins out here for Aki. You do get a lot of value with that ultimate against both the Rumble Equalizer as well as just the rockets coming out from Tangyuan if things do end up going awry. It will be important to see, though, what Leave and ppgod do have in order to round out this NIP composition. There's the Orianna takeaway that you were talking about, so no Nocturne Ori combo here for RNG, while Leave is getting the brunt of the bans, at least so far, in the second phase. That's the Ezreal that you were talking about. He popped off on that one earlier this season.
I think that this next ban has to be Varus. If it isn't Varus, it's probably going to be Caitlyn. These are just typical champions that deal very well with Corki, the range, being able to kind of outpoke him in a lot of situations. Getting rid of the Renata, so instead, they're going for the Rakan on 4. I think what NIP have is a really good snap composition. If they're able to find a pick, if they're able to find access onto someone, Rakan, Zinzao, and Bessa are great champions at being able to jump onto the enemy team and maybe find someone like this Rumble, maybe find someone like this Corki.
When you pick a lot of, you know, pick champions here for NIP, a common answer would be something like the Xayah, and double value in terms of breaking up that lovers duo here for JiaQi. He's been known for whipping out some more unorthodox carries like we were talking about. He's played things like the Tristana and the Aphelios that are not super meta these days, and so another champion like Xayah that has not seen a ton of priority going to be selected, and we'll see what Niket wants to play in his first game of the LPL this year. Aurel would be a very solid option.
Some people might see 2 double AD carries and say, are you a little bit AD focused, especially with a Nocturne, but with the true damage that comes from Corki, I think this RNG comp is actually really well suited with being able to deal with the engage coming in from NIP. It seems like the popular counter into Xayah these days has been the Kai'Sa, and while NIP, I think, have a lot of upfront damage, they will have some scaling thanks to having the Aurora and someone like this Ambessa, especially as we get further into this game. NIP have a very one-note draft. They have a lot of things that can go right for them if they have a lot of damage early on, but I think if they find themselves at a goal deficit around 15 minutes, RNG are going to be in a really comfortable spot with waiting for Corki on 2 items and even this Rumble providing a lot of damage from the top lane.
Yeah, and for RNG, it becomes a pretty simple game plan once you get later into the game. It's whenever a major objective spawns, get there first and win the 5v5, and it seems like they have a pretty good composition to do that. On the other side, NIP gonna have to find picks, gonna have to single players out and get their numbers advantages in their own creative ways, which we know creativity Doinby is certainly capable of accomplishing. So before we get into the game, we have some predictions from both ourselves as well as some of our Discord participants. If you want to join the conversation, check out the link that I'm sure is getting spammed in the Twitch chat right now. Alk, you are very NIP coded. I feel like we might get something crazy here today.
Yeah, I'm glad. For those who don't know, that Discord is obviously for everybody on Discord, and then because of the bots, someone does have the highest pick rate, or I guess the correct predictions, and that'd be Theo over on the Discord. If you want to join them, like we said, why are you here for 5 games of RNG? You gotta explain this one to me, man.
I feel like it's a win-win. If my prediction is right, I'm correct, and also we get absolute chaos going into this Invictus Gaming series. But if I'm wrong, it's most likely going to be more of an NIP 3-0 than an RNG 3-0, and I get to go to bed a little bit early. So it's a win-win, you know?
Sure.
I'm here trying to root for entertainment, to root for the maximum content, and we
got maximum content last night, man. We had 5 games, a caster swap. We had maximum content for OMG Ultra Prime when no one was thinking that was gonna happen.
All right, so now we're gonna get it. Now we're gonna get it with actual stakes on the line potentially here. 2 really good superstars playing up against each other. It's milkyway versus Doinby. It's RNG versus Ninjas in Pyjamas. NIP have a chance to lock their spot into the quarterfinals with a win here today. Let's get on to the Rift for game number 1.
Already our 2 AD carries are fighting each other as I see we come into the game, and JiaQi and Lele are 75% HP. They're already fighting in the bottom lane, trying to get vision, trying to find, vision onto the enemy opponents. And okay, we are going for strong level 1 invades. Hey, Nocturne and Rel, good enough on the level 1. Maybe they do a strong wrap around the bottom lane, but this is mostly just going to be cutting the map in half, as Milky Way will have complete control of the bottom side of the map, and Aki, as long as he doesn't have any information on this, should be feeling more than comfortable to kind of... He's going to walk in his bottom side and say, oh, I have no camps here. Oh, God.
I will say, JiaQi and Niket, while they have to get the XP and maintain lane control a little bit, walking down from the river like that might have given things away a little bit. So we'll see if Aki calls the bluff and tries to go for a vertical jungle situation, or if, as you mentioned, he goes and finds himself a bit of a nasty surprise waiting for him in his bottom side jungle. But really good start here. Creative play early on here for RNG. I think they know that they are a bit of the underdogs here and might need to play a little bit more than the standard play if they want to have a chance of pulling off the win.
I think Xiaoxu is actually in such a tough spot. Didn't hit level 2 before Shanji. Shanji has half a level over on his opponent, and his jungler is on the opposite side of the map. If you're playing Rumble, typically you want to put a little bit more resources. And to say that now is going for the engage.
Yeah, already forcing both summoner spells away from Leve. This Kaisa in a little bit of trouble here as Milky Way lands the tether. There comes the fear. It's going to be first blood secured by the jungler of Royal Never Give Up.
There we go, and Aki makes a trade as soon as Milky Way shows. He's on the opposite side of the map. I don't know if they'll be able to secure a dive. The wave isn't in a great spot. Maybe if they can force this Rumble to push out the wave just a little bit more, but great job coming in from RNG, getting the flash and the cleanse out from Leve, and potentially buying your bottom lane a little bit more time here, as JiaQi and Lele were doing so well in RNG in the past weeks in their previous series, and I think one of my worries that we'll see whether or not it comes to fruition is what this 2v2 looks like with Niket's addition.
Yeah, adjusting not just for a roster swap in general, but specifically, a bot lane change where, you get these 2 people playing in the lane together that were not doing so before. Always has a little bit of questions. There comes the Hex Slash from Niket as he's already going for an early roam. Lands a stun onto Doinby for a little bit of style points, but won't be able to do too much on top of that.
Okay. Good job, Niket. That's just called buying your mid laner a recall. Sometimes that's all you gotta do. ppgod's going to find Milky Way right now, just grabbing vision, and actually pushes him off thanks to, again, moved in. They had move of mid. Tangyuan was like, oh, I'm just gonna get my recall in, but instead it's gonna be double scuttles here for Aki. So, trading the first blood in favor of double scuttle doesn't feel too bad. Tangyuan.
He didn't go for the reset, actually. Oh, if that Q hit, that would have procced the passive. Could have gotten a little bit hairy here for Tangyuan, who decides to actually still stay. Does have to teleport if he wants it, but ppgod going to pressure him back, and looks like Tangyuan knows better than to try and risk himself going down in a 1v2.
Interesting that Doinby's also gone for the Arcane Comet build, wanting to try to outpoke his opponent. Typically we tend to see the electrocute change. We are not on 3 yet, as Leve gets engaged up on again.
Yeah, there comes the callback as well from JiaQi. Remember, Leve doesn't have any summoner spells and will just go down The Kaisa pick for Leave not working out early, as it's JiaQi coming ahead with 2 early kills for RNG.
Look, we had some eyes on this bottom lane duo. We were saying that JiaQi was an exciting rookie coming in from LDL. Him and neny have hit the ground running into this 2v2, and I feel like a little bit of egg on my face. I was saying that ppgod was such a strong laner by himself, and we're here 5 minutes. Now ppgod's left to roam mid. His AD carry gets solo killed.
Oh, wow. They think that it's so unplayable to leave the Kaisa down there that they're actually opting for now a lane swap, sending Shanji back down to the bottom lane. It looks like instead, JiaQi and neny are going to call their bluff, go back up to the top side. Good timing for both bot lanes to rotate up with the grub spawning in 30 seconds anyway.
Yeah, I think that's more so the reasoning for this. Leave just, he got forcibly made to recall and then wait in the gray screen. He's like, okay guys, I'll be rotating for grubs as soon as I've respawned and I'm back out onto the map. It will be NIP having first say into the river. A Scryer's Bloom from neny is going to spot out ppgod and Aki, but as you can already see, Shanji's on the move, but doesn't have level 6. He's going to have to leech a little bit of experience from this mid lane, and NIP are just trying to find any member of RNG that's going to walk into their jungle. I think RNG, you have a couple of options. You can play for the engage. You do have some combat summoner spells, and I think with Xiaoxu having the ultimate, that is something you can go for, but why risk it? Wait till you have level 6 on Milky Way and make sure that you're going to be in a really strong spot in just a minute's time.
neny being a little bit of a nuisance as well, and it looks like RNG decide, instead of going for the grubs, which can give you extra damage to turrets, they're going to just take some damage on the bot lane turret himself with Xiaoxu picking up a plate. As soon as Shanji showed up, I guess RNG realized they don't want to burn Xiaoxu's TP to try and make it a 5v5, so instead it's going to go for that trade and get a little bit of gold now, which they now find themselves up about 1,000.
Milky Way should be close to, yeah, he dings level 6 now. They can go for the dive. They're stacking a wave on this bottom lane. Shanji, half a quarter. I think he's a little too healthy, and with him having the flash and the ult, I think it's a bit tough. We'll see what Milky Way can grab on this recall, because he kind of has, I don't want to say a timer on this game, but you really want to make sure that you can punish and abuse some of Rumble's early strengths. And we'll see if that's going to be the case. There is a dragon spawning here, and seems like NIP are going to be playing, at least for right now, around this objective. They've already moved Doinby over, and maybe if they can get level 6 on ppgod, it's playable.
Speaking of early game Rumble, fascinating to see Xiaoxu start with the plated steel caps. First item against Shanji and Aki. This, I guess, you know, physical damage focused top side. You also have Leave,
and Bessa's just too broken, man. Like, gets level 6, has armor pen, gets healing as well. It's just too strong. You have to do it.
So now we're back to this enemy blue buff here for RNG, which Milky Way took away the first go around, and I don't think Aki wants that to happen this time. Milky Way does have the smite and will be able to secure the objective. Pops Paranoia as well, and actually are going to go on to Leave. He does have his flash up, and he will use it to escape, and that means that RNG make their way back here to this Hextech Drake, or peel off of it with successfully taking away that blue buff.
They're a little too worried. They want to spot out where Aki is, mark the enemy jungler. They should know that he's in that brush, because Milky Way did land the Q, but all this happening, Milky Way, I think Tangyuan's actually losing a lot for this. He's losing out on mid waves at Doinby.
Oh, wait a minute! Flash onto Doinby, lands the crash down as well. The Between Worlds will buy some space, and it will be enough for Doinby to escape. A very creative play, though, from neny and RNG, the new support here for Royal, doing a lot of work early on.
And that grabs them the dragon. neny is just looking like, look, early call here. He is a really strong support. We had lots of eyes on him from 2024, and like I said during the pre-show, it was a surprise to me to not see him on an LPL team. I know that he was going to go play under TES. And
he's here again.
Walking in a fog,
yeah,
man. Spotting
out Aki, who tries to go in for the steal. The dragon, notably though, has not been secured. Maybe a little bit too far here for Leave, as he does take down neny. Leave comes in. Looks like the dragon will be finalized here. RNG picking that one up.
We'll take that, though. That we were able to force out some summoner spells. Ooh. Leave again. No flash this time. That play around the bottom side Shroud Brush where they immediately engaged with Milky Way, that was his killer instinct. Now he doesn't have the summoner spell, and that's going to be kind of a boon for RNG, as within the next 30 seconds, you know, we have the grub spawning in a minute. Leave will have killer instinct, but that can be something you can still punish as Nocturne's ultimate is up and available.
We got the gold back to around even with that kill going over. It was Leave picking that one up. Now has a full static Shiv. Allowed the wave clear situation obviously to be easier. And right now, next thing to fight for was likely these grubs. You see Xiaoxu most likely going for a reset. RNG probably don't want to give away all 6 of these grubs. I would imagine, Alk, that they put a little bit more effort towards trying to fight for these this time.
For NIP, it would be great. The problem is that they haven't had too much time to actually hit turrets. The only person that's really been kind of putting in that work on the structures is Doinbi, and that has been, I think, large in part due to RNG pulling Tangyuan away from the 1v1.
Yeah, and actually it looks like NIP maybe giving this one up a little bit as you see Doinbi now rotating towards the bottom side of the map, and RNG going to get first say around the void grubs. Looks like JiaQi going to opt to farm instead of looking to contest, at least for now. So this likely will at least negate the opportunity for a feat of strength going over for NIP this time around. But now JiaQi is in the area. Doinbi does have the teleport if they want to fight, but I don't imagine they want to.
Walking into fog.
ppgod spots out Niket and JiaQi, and it looks like that will mean that they can get away.
They're buying time right now as Doinbi is hitting this bottom lane turret. They're getting him plates, and we were talking about it, I think, during the pre-show a little bit about, I think, the influence of having someone like Doinbi. But when we talk about the in-game, Doinbi has been really, really good about playing for side lanes. I think that has always been, I think, traditionally a strength of his, especially when we talk about, you know, things like the Kled and then playing for team fights and his impact. He's been so creative. I think in our interview with Patty, he was talking about the Rise ultimate in Game 2, and he was just like, that happened without me even thinking about it. I was not even able to process it fast enough. My hand was already hitting the R key before I could comprehend what was going on. So I'm looking for what Doinbi can do and how much of an impact he'll have on this game, especially with how RNG have played the early set so far.
And now RNG with Doinbi on the bottom side, opt to go to the other side of the map. Try to pick up some plates at the very least on this top side. Shanji going to try to clear the wave. Instead, they landed the Magnet Storm in onto ppgod, who is
oh my god! ppgod!
Milky Way will take the kill and the feat of strength, but will go down in a 1v1 trade. Doinbi teleports up to the top side, so they do buy a little bit of space here for Xiaoxu on the bottom end, and it will be a 1-for-1 overall, but RNG, I think, coming out on top here.
I wonder if maybe they're even going to try to set up a dive onto this Rumble, but with how things were going on top side, NIP just have to snap, make the call. They get the TP out from Doinbi, and it is only just a 1-for-1 trade. I want to kind of see in this replay, what else are they able to grab from this? Great engage coming in from Niket and from Milky Way. These two in tandem basically make it almost impossible for ppgod to get any of his spells off, and it only is just barely after all of this is said and done, but it seems like for the most part it was maybe getting a summoner spell. I think the flash out for ppgod is a very big impact, but look at what they traded. No flash on Corki, no flash on Nocturne, so those next in trips for someone like Nocturne is gonna be a one-way for this guy.
Does have the experimental hex play, so we'll be able to do a lot of damage once he does go in here with that ultimate, but of course without that flash it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You can see right now the carries for NIP ahead in the gold by a very solid margin, I should say here. You know, the fun thing about Doinbi is that he's happy to sack waves and things like that, but has been able to pick up a ton of turret plates here in these last couple of minutes for his team.
And look at where Leve is. He's somehow up 200 gold despite being down 2 deaths, which I think is surprising, especially with how this early game was going, and I think worrisome for a team like RNG. They're one that I think have some pretty sloppy mid games sometimes and are really reliant on either their bottom lane finding a massive engage, or, you know, Milky Way and Tangyuan, this 2v2 having, I think, some really strong prowess in side lanes, which you can do skirmisher in Corki and on a long side lane with someone like Nocturne to empower him. It's definitely a possibility.
Looks like Tangyuan, though, is going to want to clear this wave out and maybe head for a bit of a reset, because the fact that the dragon is spawning in 10 seconds. Looks like instead he's going to stay around for one more as the turret plates are about to fall. Would be second dragon for RNG if they're able to pick that up. It would be also the full feats of strength going over to them as they've taken now 2 of the 3 objectives with that first dragon and second spawn of grubs. So Ninjas and Pyjamas going to want to try and be there first to make sure that doesn't happen.
Tangyuan's going to continue pushing on this top wave. He does have teleport to be able to match here, and if Shanji moves, he'll have first play. It will be with the mini wave that is under the turret here for Xiaoxu, but big item spikes. We talked about Milky Way having that first buy for the experimental hex plate, and while JiaQi does have the Essence Reaver, it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to really leverage that into an objective win, at least for right now. Seems like instead the play is towards the bottom side of the map. Doinbi basically annihilates minion waves, and if they really want to, they can look for this, except RNG are blocking them at the pass. If you see over by the Raptor pit, it is just AD carry and support. They do not want to allow Lele and ppgod into the area.
So they're going to have to go maybe the long way a little bit. I would say also nicely done by NIP to drag the Dragon out of the pit at least a little bit. Made sure that milkyway did not get vision on the Drake or any of the champions before Smite ended up becoming a possibility to steal things away. So NIP evening out the Dragon count at 1 as we do see some teleports down to the bottom side. Meanwhile, the bot laners going at it as well as JiaQi won the 1v1 earlier. Going to try to win the 1v1 again, this time getting a little help from milkyway, but Leave will be able to flash out.
No ult, no flash from Leave as ppgod tries to make this engage, and that's got to be JiaQi going down.
Yeah, not even going to want to burn the flash. He will fall. The overextension results in a big punish for NIP. They're going to pick up 2 kills as well as this mid lane turret.
Even if they would have found that kill onto Kai'Sa, it is just not enough here as RNG overextend for NIP's AD carry, and now the entire map has exploded. NIP, they gain control of that mid-tier 1, they take it down, then they move into top side, so now Xiaoxu has to be careful, like, am I getting dove? Are there going to be multiple members jumping in under the turret? RNG, at least for their trade, will be able to grab a turret on the back end, and maybe we see something of that kind of come through on this Herald that's spawning, but this 1v1 between JiaQi, so close here. I think the fact that JiaQi actually ends up using his ultimate without them being able to secure the flash, it's a bit risky because he just used the blade collar, so it would have to be an instant snapback, and yeah, just turns into a kill found in mid here.
There's a lot of patience from Leave there as well, saving the killer instinct until he's underneath the tower to just get a little bit of extra distance away from milkyway as he comes in with the paranoia. That saves his life, and it also buys time for the rest of his team to come in and now help NIP get up to a 1,500 gold lead as we approach the 17-minute mark of this game. Rift Herald now has spawned, and that should be the next topic of conversation for both of these squads.
Ooh, this is so dangerous. So, like you're saying, Herald is up. You have Dragon in 2.5 minutes, but for both of these teams, it would be that ability to get the feats of strength. And I'm trying not to get distracted by the shiny graphics, but they did say that NIP have a first turret win percentage. So pretty insane. If they're able to grab that first turret, they win all of their games. We'll see what NIP are able to do from this spot, because despite what was the first 10 to 12 minutes here, NIP's bounce back has been really incredible. I think the fact that Leave has stabilized so well and is even garnering a small lead for himself, and this Rumble really hasn't done all that much. We didn't see them take control of top side very strongly, so I need to see a little bit more from RNG, and maybe that comes from the mid lane. We talked about the improvement coming in from Tangyuan, but he's very close to finishing Muramana. That'll be, I think, the big power spike coming in for this team.
Yeah, so it looks like before they get to that spike, RNG don't feel comfortable fighting against NIP at this point, so they will give up the feats of strength as the Rift Herald will go Aki's way. Nicely done here by NIP. They send a lot of resources top lane. They get what they came there for. And we'll get some upgraded boots as well.
They're making a play. They just know. Thanks to the terrain of the map, thanks to NIP getting that first turret, or that turret in mid, they can just move into this top side, start to cut off some of the resources for RNG. Maybe even stop Xiaoxu from getting into this turret. Again, they have 3 grubs. They're summoning the Herald here as well. I think they want to try to find some summoner spells, maybe get an ultimate or 2, so that this Otacon in 1.5 minutes, they force RNG to have to walk into them.
Rift Herald comes out, almost takes down the turret, but it looks like Aki will be able to do that and finish the job. Niket going for an early engage, already forcing ppgod to flash out, use the quickness, but look at the Mbessa here on the front line. Shanji buying so much space. Here comes Doinby with the Between the Worlds, does not land the Q or the damage of the ultimate onto anybody, so that will be a play abandoned for NIP. The observers maybe calling Doinby out here.
He said in the interview, man, hey, my age is not what it used to be, okay? You know, age might be a factor in some of these plays. And Doinby may be overestimating the mobility of this champion. Unfortunately, Doinby, despite your champion coming out in the last year, you're not Mbessa. You do not have 1 million dashes. You only have 2, depending on resets.
And that means that not enough gap closing there. He was able to escape with his life, getting closer to that second item. We'll get another look at this replay here. Aki, it seems like NIP were just a little bit split. Nice job by Niket to force the engage and force the fight to one side.
Yeah, and I will say, as much as this was NIP, I think, focusing on short-term gold gains and potentially grabbing an advantage, they wasted a lot of summoner spells. Not only Doinby's Flash, but there's no cleanse available for this Kai'Sa. There is no Flash or heal for this bottom lane. So could be an angle for RNG to look at, especially for someone like neny, who had a really strong early part to this game, and unfortunately the rest of RNG haven't really been able to snap all together. I think they really need to pull in Xiaoxu into some of these plays, because he's just been splitting this whole time, and we need the Rumble to show up to team fights eventually.
Yeah, the big strength here for RNG is their 5v5 team fighting, but they have not really been able to have a situation where everything comes into fruition at the right time, where neny gets a huge ultimate, milkyway finds a paranoia, equalizer comes down, and I think a lot of it is just because of the map movements here from NIP. They seem to be arriving at these plays first a lot of the time, and they've been controlling the objective game, especially in these last 10 minutes or so.
Observers, I saw you in the pip. That was a great bit of supportal warfare coming through. It feels tough. It feels tough here, Grapes. Like, we wanted to see RNG with this great team fight, like you were saying, engage with neny, but NIP are both kind of willing to opt into it, and RNG just haven't really found a way to include their Rumble into plays. I am looking for, obviously we talked about the items, power spikes that are coming in for RNG, but NIP, I think, are more than comfortable getting to 2-3 items. I mean, Doinby's already finished 2 here in mid lane, right? And that's with him getting a lot of influx of gold from turrets. Now has the Shadow Flame and the Ludens, plus the upgraded boots. This Aurora is very dangerous to deal with, and I don't know if there's anybody really in a side lane that can win that 1v1. Maybe if you can include milkyway, that'll be an angle for them, but we're seeing NIP start to get into position for this Otacon. Dragon was already taken by them, and neny has a monster flank, but again, we need to see this team actually get in position. He gets 6 spotted by Ludens!
Oh,
man.
That's unlucky. And you can see as well, Xiaoxu is forced to catch this top wave, so will not be at the play early. And that allows Shanji a timer to run down to the mid lane, save the teleport for another time. And now neny is in a lot of trouble. He has to flash and use the crash down to just escape with his life. That is a big cooldown taken away here by the RNG support. And that means that NIP will be able to at least control this bot lane tower. And they're actually going to make their way over to the Otacon as well.
Yeah. I love how Shanji has been able to play this Mbessa. I think that he's really matched where he needed to be. He's forced Xiaoxu or someone like Tangyuan to actually come and respect the waves. We're going to get the teleport coming in. This has to be the team fight for RNG, and Shanji has a huge flank.
Otacon at 5,000 HP. It gets pulled out a little bit, but the aggro range is pretty long. Going to get a reset right now as NIP are happy enough with just getting the teleport out of the Rumble. They're going to head back to base after knowing that next time around they won't have the Rumble TP to deal with or negy's flash. As actually neny going to get caught out here. Leave dashing in with the killer instinct. ppgod following up, and that means that neny will fall and NIP make their way right back to the Otacon.
There it is. We're starting up the Otacon. RNG just never found the timer to engage. They got completely routed off thanks to the pull off of the Otacon, and now they're going to be able to get resets, they're going to get revives. It's not as strong as it used to be, but look at this Milky Way marking Shanji. Shanji has no idea.
Paranoia comes out, but now Shanji caught in a bit of a 1v4. Going to have to try to escape here. Perfect execution, or public execution comes out. Dash over the wall is not enough.
Wow.
And it will be a shutdown going Xiaoxu's way. So nicely done by RNG to collapse onto the flank. And now it's a 5v4 in their favor as they start up the Otacon.
We are going to be starting up the Otacon. I think this is still pretty risky. Doinby's going to be moving in. Gets the W, gets a bit of damage onto Milky Way, but this is already down. Can Aki make the steal?
Yeah, neny making his way back here to the play as well. Comes in. It will be secured here by JiaQi of all people. Already one forced to revive. That is Milky Way down there, but Tangyuan going to go in. Remember, they have the revives. They can go all the way in. It's a shutdown onto Aki, and RNG are right back into this game. They win a big fight around the major objective.
RNG have come to tussle. We were saying that this was an NIP favored series, and we have Tangyuan flashing over, making big plays onto his opponents. I think that that's a play we probably would not have seen from Tangyuan of 2024, but I think with this RNG roster, they feel very confident in their placement. I feel like this is just a caster curse from me. I was just saying great things about Shanji, and then he gets caught out on the side lane, uses his flash as well at the end of that play, which opens up the Otacon. And now they have a revive. The next minute and a half, it is off of a player like Tangyuan, but I think they can still continue to be a bit aggressive, especially towards the top side. We've got Dragon spawning in 40. We've got the Baron in 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see RNG start up this Baron and really try to force the issue onto NIP. Do not be, the secondary dance partner here for this team. Lead NIP around the map. You do not want to have to play second fiddle.
Exactly. RNG's teamfight composition, we talked about in the draft, is very, very good. They can go over to this Baron and start it up, allow NIP to go in and try to fight a 5v5 would work wonders for them at this point, as they are now back to even in the gold department. Looks like they think that Baron's a little bit too risky, but they do have the Dragon spawning in just 5 seconds. Getting that second Infernal will be very, very solid for them, as they will make another play towards the mid lane before heading over to them.
Ooh, they can go for it. Neket can look. He has Hex Flash as well. They're waiting for Xiaoxu maybe. I think this is not... Yeah, just let Milky Way while he's doing the Dragon this entire time. RNG, I think, need to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to these objectives. You do have double marksman here with Corki and this Saya, which means that objectives like Baron, like Dragon, do shred really, really fast. And that'll be something that we'll have to be taking a look at, as now we have 2 Dragons apiece for both teams. So unless this game goes extra late, I don't think we're seeing a Dragon Soul. But game's remarkably even for how much we kind of set up NIP early.
Uh-oh. Tangyuan maybe in a little bit of trouble here.
No
Has
flash.
to revive at least for a little bit. It's not going to time out, so he will likely... Oh, they're waiting. They're trying to stall it out. They know the timer is over soon, and they bide their time and allow for Leave to pick up the shutdown. Paranoia does come in, though. Milky Way looking for Aki. Will be able to pick up the kill. Shanji goes a little bit too far forward, and now Xiaoxu will flash in onto Leave and force him away from the fight. Doinby is very far in, has to go golden, but will fall. RNG winning another fight as Aki picks up another.
Oh, can Lee find it? He walks up, he finds the plasma procs, kills Neket on the spot. This Kaisa kind of feels like the last weapon in the arsenal for NIP as they take a sloppy fight around this blue buff. Yeah, you timed it around the Otacon respawn, but think about you lost during this fight. No flash on this Kaisa anymore, as we get a replay of this. It's just great timing. I'm glad that they're able to show a little bit of patience. They know that the timer is coming up. And while it's nice that they were able to find Tangyuan here, I think it just takes way too long. Yeah. Leave comes into this play. You know that the reactivity from RNG is going to be on a great snapback, like having this Nocturne ult come straight into your backline. I will also say, I think R280 carries, while Leave's, I think, early game left a lot to be desired. JiaQi and him have been, I think, trading blows all game long here.
It goes back to that question of trying to leave Tangyuan open to finally leave him alive until, the revive comes out. You could have just taken the 200 gold and backed out, but instead they opt to go for the larger fight. I think RNG get net 1 kill on that and keep the gold lead very, very close. I think the notable thing, though, is that all of a sudden Xiaoxu is a lot stronger now, has the Seeker's Arm Guard working towards that Zanya's, and it looks like NIP actually are the ones who want to start a fight. They know that Tangyuan is on the bottom side, and there's no vision in the Baron pit. They're going to try to burst this down before RNG have anything to say about it.
Neket's already almost dead. They can't make an engage. This is probably just going to be the Baron going over. Tangyuan is taking a lot on the side lane. How much can he get done while this Baron is being taken? Seems like it's only going to be that single turret. Let's see what NIP are actually able to do. I will say the parts that are going well for them, they have a push in top lane. The mid-tier one hasn't fallen yet, so it is very easy for them to actually push out of mid and move in. The timer on this Baron is also going to overlap with the Dragon, so I don't think RNG are going to be seeing that 3rd or the 5th Dragon of the game here for themselves, as NIP get a large amount of gold put into their back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, that's the largest criticism I have for RNG so far in this first game, is their indecision making, like their lack of decision making, I should say. They, with this team fighting comp, should be comfortable with going around objectives, but it seems like they're never willing to fully commit for a 5v5. It seems like they're actually the ones playing the sidelines more than NIP at this point, with Tangyuan on the Corki, always in the side, trying to pick up a little bit of extra farm, and it has not allowed for RNG to fight these team fights the way that they might want to. And now NIP have the Baron buff for 2 minutes. They could try to break open some of the structures themselves and get themselves right back into control of this first game.
So let's do a carry check here, because like you were saying, the split pushing that Tangyuan has been doing does mean that he has an objective lead. He has 1,000 gold over Doinby, so 3 items on this Corki is a huge change. Thank you to some of our production. 40% damage share with this Kaisa is insane, especially because there's not that many tanks. This is not like you have a Sejuani and a Maokai/Ornn in top lane. This is an Ambessa and a Sinsao. So this Kaisa does so much damage. You have the Q evolve with those 2 items with the Static Shiv and the Essence Reaver. You also now have the Sork Pen boots alongside the Shadow Flame and Void Staff.
And you can see how much damage it does.
Those plasma procs basically one-shot everybody.
Okay. RNG, pop the Paranoia, looking for a play up at the top side, and Shanji's actually the one who gets targeted, lands the public execution on to Tangyuan. Should be able to dash away, flash away, with the rest of his team joining him in the top side river. So that's an ultimate used, and now milkyway on the runaway, and nip are here to try to chase him down. Here comes ppgod using the blast cone over the wall. Nice use of the spell shield for milkyway to escape. The between worlds does connect. That is a lot of damage onto the Nocturne, but not enough. Now it might be a bit of an overextension.
Wait,
JiaQi! Under the turret. JiaQi picks up 2. It's actually a double kill going to Niket, the rel of all people, as the overextension for nip makes 2 of their players go down, but there's no jungler on RNG side. Aki should pick up soul point here for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
I think it was so tragic to see Milky Way having to do, what every other jungler has to do, which is walk away from the opponents, and a solo lane's like, 07, thanks bro, I'm just going to teleport out of this play. I'll see you back at base if I have to. Big win, I think, for RNG, who, despite losing out, I think, on the play onto Shanji, got so many kills, finding Leave and ppgod in the end of that fight. nip not able to do all that much with their Baron. They've only gotten the mid-tier 2 and the bottom tier 2, as well as this Dragon, which sets them up on soul point, but now they've got the trade. RNG will have got those kills, as well as now finally the mid-tier 1.
Yeah, and apart from just the gold that Baron provides, basically a net neutral on the Baron buff for nip. RNG doing a really nice job, and we have to credit Milky Way here. If he died around this area of the map, would have not been able to get those 2 kills right back, but a really excellent use of the spell shield, as well as just not enough damage coming out, forcing Leave to overextend.
Leave and ppgod go forward, Killer Instinct and Flash for Rakan, and then they're just stuck under the turret. Even getting Leave's cleanse, I think, really big win. My problem I think I have with this play now is, how do RNG play the game? Because you've now gotten to the point here at 32 minutes, 4-item Kaisa, who is going AP. She will always outrange your team, and if she really wants to try to not get one-shotted by something like the Nocturne, can just opt into the Zonias. And it just seems like this is not even fully stacked plasma procs. That's a third of JiaQi's HP. Yeah. Imagine what happens if the entire passive goes off.
And you can see he's going for a more defensive build, now building the Hex Drinker just to be safer from those Void Seekers. Doinby providing probably a little bit of threat there as well. But remember, it was JiaQi who actually got off to the early lead. Him and Niket got those early 2v2 kills. And now it is Leave, the main threat here, probably the strongest player across both squads.
Those are the big eyes, especially with an early game that was as questionable as it was for nip and their bottom lane losing the 2v2. RNG, their early game has been really good, especially when we talk about their bottom lane. But like we said, the mid game is where it really starts to get into an issue. And I think that's where I think some of the veteran voices of a team like nip start to kick in and being able to lead the team as to where they need to be able to go. We talk about ppgod, who has been playing for a while, especially him, and I think Doinby get to play the map really, really well. So, minute before Baron, we'll see how RNG are able to set up, because from here on out, I expect nip, barring some massive teamfight flub, are going to be looking to take this game, but I think this game has proven that they're not playing the cleanest, at least in this first game.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very close in gold right now. I think we saw the graphic there in the bottom half of your screen. Only 50, it's 50.2 to 49.8 in terms of the gold share right now between these two teams. That is how neck and neck it has been. Of course, gold allocated in different locations for both of these teams. Leave is the main carry here for nip, but the soul laners for RNG should be packing a bit of a punch here as well. It's going to come down to them. If they can execute on these 5v5 team fights, maybe even look for some picks of their own. Niket's been really good at catching players on nip out if they do step a little bit too far.
That ward from nip is doing dirty, dirty work here for them. The fact that it sees so many RNG members able to stop them, and they basically also, with these Void Seekers, just get like a free Farsight alteration whenever they want. They can just check Fog of War without having to face check into it. So NIP, with this single lone mid-wave minion, are probably not going to be getting too much done. RNG are not starting up this Baron. They need to stop some kind of vision. Every single Void Seeker just means it goes back on a 2-second cooldown. This is so annoying to deal with.
And now we're playing Australian mode a little bit as RNG on the wrong side of the mid lane. I see a team fight try to open up. Tangyuan trying to catch this mid wave out early as Niket's already taken down to about 60% HP. These Void Seekers really doing a lot of work as RNG have to play dodgeball essentially while still trying to figure out when they want to go for an engage.
And because they've done this, now they were trying to catch the wave high in mid.
Is so
this
low.
is not going to be the case anymore. They're just starting this up. They're waiting to see if Tangyuan is going to be either on this side lane or if Niket's going to be going for the engage. He's not spotted this time, but Tangyuan's almost down. Leave does have enough points in his ultimate. He should be able to get onto anybody from here.
We're just barely missing Milky Way right there. Look at the damage charts on the bottom right now. So far, Leave has done 2,600 damage before anybody has done any other damage to champions here in this extended play. Niket, though, has a big flank. Low HP, but looking to target Doinby. Doesn't get away here with the dash and is forced to pop Zani's Hourglass before flashing away. Here comes Aki, pops the Crescent Guard, landing the knock-up onto JiaQi, who has to use the barrier in response. Right now, nobody falling, but the health bar is very much on NIP side, and Leave still at full HP with both of his summoner spells. Void Seeker comes out, not connecting once again. Tangyuan dashing away from ppgod, but already Niket will fall as Doinby essentially one-shots him. Public execution for Shanji does not connect. JiaQi, though, with the Blade Caller, will be able to pick one back up, but here comes Leave, and the Kaisa is looking to run away here with this fight, dashing in onto Tangyuan, and it is 4-for-1 in favor of NIP.
6,000 damage, and NIP's AD carry leaves RNG in the dust. Baron's going to be their take, and the team fight just looked too free. RNG just could not find an angle into the fight. Niket was half HP. They lose almost all of their summoner spells in the trade. This game feels like it has to be over. They even have the soul that's already up with this dragon. This dance around the top side just feels doomed from the start. Half HP on most of your members before it starts, and Doinby one-shots Niket with a combo from this Aurora. It is just so annoying to deal with this composition. As RNG, they didn't find the snap, they didn't find the engage, and Leave just killer instincts right into the backline and destroys whatever hope RNG have.
Yeah, JiaQi tried to flash away from that W from Leave, but just was a millisecond too late. That allowed for Leave to use the killer instinct on top of him and eventually finish him off. Now has a death cap in his inventory as NIP will also be able to pick up the Infernal Soul. These Kaisa Ws are going to start to hurt real fast off.
Yeah, 500 AP here for Doinby, and you got to be looking at Leave. Hasn't upgraded the boots, but like you said, finishing death cap there, has 3 AP items alongside it. The Infernal Soul proc itself is just going to make this untenable. So now here for RNG, it's all about defense, and for NIP, I want to see how cleanly they're able to close this one out as, again, this is an expected match for them, but I don't think we were expecting how close.
Oh my
Looking
God.
very playable right about now.
Oh, that's just 2 Ws that could almost one-shot the enemy AD carry right now. Really nice adjustment here for Leave to go for this poke build, really countering a lot of what RNG want to do in this 5v5 comp. Meanwhile, Milky Way just caught out of position right now, looking for some extra vision or some sort of flank. Forced to go back to base after burning the ultimate, and now means that NIP can continue the siege here onto this mid lane inhibitor turret. Looks like they'll pick that one up. Shanji dashing forward. Niket will have to head back to base. NIP not deciding that they want to try to end the game right now. Instead, they'll head back, make good use of the gold that they have earned in this Baron power play, and look for their next play on the other side of the map.
And Leave upgrades his boots, so he's got flat and percentage magic pen. Oh no, Niket almost dies during that whole play. We have artillery Kaisa coming on through. Milky Way almost goes down. I mean, there's not much else to put in this game. I think that this is a hard-fought game here on NIP. Their early game was not perfect, but it came down to that mid-game decision-making, the fact that we weren't able to see them kind of connect the pieces with the team fight composition that we wanted to see from them, and maybe I think back to the drawing board. We have seen RNG be able to bounce back in a lot of these series, and I think some of their team fighting has been a lot stronger, just a little bit slow to the trigger this time.
And if you are RNG, you're going to have to find a way to kill Leave early before he's able to do a ton of damage.
He's not even on the same screen as you, man.
Got to find some way. Maybe Rumble ult with the Nocturne ulti or something. But right now,
grab his keyboard right now.
Yeah, looks like time's running out. Only one more wave of the Baron buff, and it will not be able to get too much. but NIP is still very, very powerful. They've extended their gold lead to over 5k, and they'll be happy to just continue to poke away at these HP bars and keep RNG in their own base.
I mean, it basically comes down to in 3 minutes has NIP ended the game, because if NIP haven't, then they can just go to the Baron, or they can go to the Elder Dragon, and the game's going to end either way. So in the next 3 minutes, we have to see either if RNG able to find and engage, maybe here on the ppgod.
Going for broke, just on the ppgod though. That's a lot of cooldowns burned just for the enemy support. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, it is going to be a 1v2 here for Shanji, but he has the Guardian Angel. Tangyuan barely will escape with his life, as it will be Shanji getting burned down. Kill going into JiaQi's hands. So now a 4v5 on the map. However, looks like Aki and the rest of NIP don't want to let RNG reset. They're going here for the Nexus Towers right now. Leave dashing in with the Killer Instinct, trying to avoid RNG from heading into the fountain, but they won't be able to do so just yet. But look at Doinby. That's 2 kills going over, and now a numbers advantage right back into NIP's face. They're headed onto the Nexus turrets. The first one already burning. Already going to be Xiaoxu going down. JiaQi going to try to save the game. He picks himself up a kill on the ppgod, but the 80 carries is not going to be enough here for RNG.
Wait a minute, okay.
Can JiaQi do it? The answer is no. Leave unstoppable. Doinby still in, but the super minions crashing down onto the enemy Nexus. milkyway will not be able to save the game here for RNG, as Ninjas in Pyjamas take game 1 of the series.
Insane win from them, especially with how the early game started, the 2v2 found for RNG. The early game, I mean, they were very close to finishing off feats of strength, like 12 minutes into the game. And then NIP with some creative team fighting. It wasn't clean, it wasn't perfect, but win is League of Legends ever, really. So that was, I think, a game that really, I think, puts a lot of respect onto their map play and calls into question some of the confidence from RNG. I think the strongest parts of that game were when Niket actually found the engages, found picks, and went in onto the opponents. And that, I think, was a strength that he had last year as well.
And it seemed like RNG didn't want to group up and fight until it was potentially too late. Once Leave got super strong, was able to poke people out there with the Void Seekers, it became very, very difficult for RNG to play the game. If they got to an objective too early, NIP could just continue to poke them out and then strike when their moment was right. And once we got into the later stages, both Leave and Doinby doing a lot of damage here to the RNG champions. I will say, I think it's a pretty easy most valuable player guess here for this first one. Despite all of the pressure that Leave was given and the 2v2 kills that went over towards JiaQi and Niket, I think that he did more than enough in the later stages of the game to deserve that one.
I just want to see what his damage share is, because when you're playing APKaisa, and we saw them landing like so many Prey Seekers, like you're probably getting closer to 45% of your team's damage, and then maybe you're sharing with someone like Doinby. We didn't actually see, I think, the top side of NIP really have too much say of this game, and I think that has been true of NIP so far in 2025. I think that this core has really been ran with Doinby at the helm, and then you have, you know, 80 carry Leave and ppgod and Aki as like followers to the charge.
Yeah, and in terms of some of the other players on NIP, I will say I think Shanji on the Mbessa did a really good job buying a lot of space for the carries to do some work. And
Shanji might need to be investigated for some of this Mbessa game, however. There were some questionable moments for himself.
I think, though, a lot of that was kind of on RNG as well for making a solid play. I'm thinking about that Otacon play where they just decided to collapse onto him. And I think other teams might have just gone for the Otacon fight and avoided going for the Mbessa, and then would have gotten flanked on and maybe all killed. But it's good decision-making from RNG, specifically on that play, although we need to see that more later on. There's the damage charts. Yeah, it's about 1,200 DPM here for Leave.
Dude, our junglers did almost as much damage as our supports.
Yeah, milkyway not the strongest game overall. We didn't get too much use of that paranoia.
I mean, look at our Rumble,
levels
man.
down as well.
My Rumble was playing vegan Rumble. This guy was eating salads top lane for 45 minutes. Let's see the damage share here for, oh my god, 43%. Kaisa's OP, guys. Looks good.
Yeah. We're in Fearless, so Leave's not going to be able to get that again.
True.
However, it was a great answer into the composition that RNG had. It both is able to follow up on some of the pick potential that NIP have in their kit, and also is able to provide a lot of poke to try to burst down some members of RNG, you know, in some of these later game team fights. This is a play that I think really shifted things towards NIP as we get a look at some highlights. Leave being able to survive here and also getting 2 kills on the back end. It seemed like every time a player on NIP was targeted, the rest of the team was always there to try and punish.
You know what's also, I think, kind of going to be fun to watch? We teased it just a little bit for our head-to-head. Tangyuan's improvement so far. I think that he played this game really, really valiantly. I want to see what that looks like, especially because Doinbi, I think his precision has just been a little bit low. This was the fight that I think individually I was really impressed, and it's plays like these that got RNG a couple of kind of miracle wins, I think, in the FPX series especially. That series ended up going the distance and potentially could have gone a different way. I think we could have seen FPX finding a win in that series if it wasn't for a player like Tangyuan on his Yone especially. So if he can keep this level of performance, there has to be a game in here from NIP where they troll just a little too much. They take a random mid-game team fight, Aki gets caught out, Leave does another performance in the first 10 minutes of this game. Something has to give, I think, for RNG. They just need to be able to hit the bar, I think.
Yeah, it seemed like the cards were on the table for RNG to take that game as well. Just not enough to stop Leave, who just continued to pile up the kills. Some really nice individual plays from, I think, JiaQi and milkyway. You know, in some instances, like this was a really nice attempt to try to get away, but just not enough in terms of forcing different plays. And you know, JiaQi, I think, though, played a really good game. There is opportunities for RNG to win against NIP, I think.
Yeah. On one hand, right, like, we want them to engage, but then you watch the game and they're not in position for fights early enough. When Niket is in a flank, he gets spotted either by Vision or Luden's companion for some reason. And then you can't ever, it's a damned if you do, because by the time he walks up, he's already 10% HP because Kai'Sa's an OP champion and passive just destroys his face. So, like, I feel bad for Niket and for RNG, but that is just a matter of setting up and making sure that you are getting to fights early and making sure that the right players are in the right spot, right? We wanted to see Xiaoxu move over, but he had to catch waves. But he was unwilling to drop a minion wave to teleport to the play. So that means that they had to give up an early dragon. They had to give up some herald. All these things start to compound and end up in where we come into a game 25 minutes in and we're like, well, RNG can't actually ever walk into an objective because they just are outranged for the rest of the game.
It's tough. It's tough, especially because of the indecision that RNG had towards the start of the game. If they hit that 1 to 2 item power spikes early on and they went for objective fights, I feel like they would have been in a much better spot, but instead opting to go for things like turret trades and things like that. Some more decisiveness like we saw from their new addition to Ket, who I think also played himself a very good game, will be good here for RNG if they want to try to even this series up, make it a competitive one. I will say right now as well, NIP have locked themselves at least a spot in the quarterfinals with this win due to game differential, as the player of the game most obviously is Leave.
Yeah, it's a double elim bracket, so, and if you're in the second seed, you're going to be playing before any of the first seed teams, so yeah, it's, at least with this win, like you were saying, NIP, they will make it to top 8, which is an accomplishment for this roster, but now with the addition of Doinbi, I think that they should be looking for a little bit higher aspirations.
Absolutely. They win this series, they'll block the #1 seed, but they at least have one part of that done. But as Kobe Bryant once said, the job is not finished. We got Game 2 draft coming up in just a second, but before we do so, we want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to all of our supporters on Coffee who, we're extremely grateful for our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up our show. A lot of the initial payments that you guys have been able to contribute so far have gone into upgrading the broadcast, but also a huge bulk of it will go on to pay on-air talent and content creators. You can subscribe to our Coffee, which is linked in the chat, to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions like we saw with Doinbi for our unique on-site interviews. NIP